Okay, today we're talking about linking fractions, decimals, and percents. You need to remember that percent simply means out of 100. So that means that if I give you 30% and I wanted you to write that as a fraction, well, all percent can be written over 100. So instead of calling it 30%, I would just simply say it is 30 over 100, because that's what a percent is. It's how many out of 100. 30% is the same thing as 30 over 100. The one trick, the one thing that you must remember to do when rewriting a percent as a fraction is that you must put it in simplest form. I can take a 10 out of each of these. I can divide the numerator by 10 and the denominator by 10. And that's going to reduce my fraction to 3/10. So 30% is the same thing as 30 out of 100, 30 over 100, which reduces to the fraction 3/10. Now I can also take this to decimal form. It's best to rewrite it in decimal form while you have it over 100, and you would read this as 30 hundredths. Well, that just simply means that the last digit must fall in the hundredths position. Remember that this is the tenths position, this is the hundredths position. This 0 is not necessary. I could just simply call that 3/10 and have my answer. So that means that 30% is the same thing as 3/10, which is the same thing as 0.3, or 3/10 as a decimal. All three things mean the same thing. Okay, here I want you to change 0.63 to a percent. Well, to change it to a percent, I just simply need to move my decimal point 2 places to the right. And by doing that, I am saying that 0.63, which is 63 hundredths, is the same thing as 63%. Well, again, let's just look at what I just said, 0.63. If I read that as a fraction, or as a correct decimal, I would say that it is 63 hundredths. Remember that percents mean out of 100. Well, this is 63 out of 100, so it's the same thing as 63%. Again, I can just simply move the decimal place 2 places to the right to get this, rather than having to do all of this math in between. So if I want to go from a decimal to a percent, I move the decimal place twice to the right. Okay, the reverse of that would be to change it from a percent to a decimal. Well, if going from a decimal to a percent is moving it 2 places to the right, going from a percent to the decimal should be moving it 2 places to the left. So I should be able to move this 2 places to the left, meaning my answer would be 0.072. Well, let's look at this. 7.2%. If I wrote that over 100, that would be 7.2 over 100. Well, we don't want to mix decimals and fractions, so that means I need to move my decimal place out. I do that by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by 10. So that's going to move the decimal place 1 to the right and move the decimal place 1 to the right. So that means that that's the same thing as 72 1/1000. Notice that my decimal I got up here, moving the decimal place twice to the left, is the same as the fraction I got here. This is read as 72 thousandths because the 2 lands in the thousandths position. And the fraction that I got was 72 over 1,000. So in fact, I can just simply move the decimal place 2 places to the left. Okay, so let's try a couple. First of all, let's write 54% as a fraction. Well, remember, if it's in percent form and I want it as a fraction, that just simply means to write it over 100. So this would be 54 over 100. Don't forget to reduce. The reduced form of this, my numerator and denominator can both be divided by 2. That's going to give me 27 over 50 as my reduced fraction. Okay, let's turn 90/100ths into a percent. Remember, if I'm going from a decimal to a percent, I move it 2 places to the right. That means 0.91, 91/100ths. Remember that word, 91/100ths is the same thing as 91%. Remember, percent means out of 100. And then let's go ahead and write 3/5 as a percent. 3/5 as a percent. Okay, I have a couple of options here. The first option, which is what I'm going to use, is I just rewrite this over 100 and change it from there. The other option is to divide this because all fractions are division problems. Let's go ahead and just rewrite this over 100. Well, 5 will go into 100 20 times. So that means I need to multiply my numerator by 20. That's 60 over 100, which is the same thing as 60%. Okay, what if I wanted to change 60% into a decimal? Well, that means I need to move the decimal place to the left twice. If I don't see the decimal place, it's right here to the right of my number. I just move it twice to the left. That means it's the same thing as 0.6 as a decimal.